Sukkah gezula, a sukkah that is stolen. What's the halacha regarding a sukkah that is stolen? So here the Gemara says, you have it, Ralph? Sukkah gezula and hamasachet b'shus rabim. Similarly, there are two cases. Someone who also uses public property. You go into you take property that's not yours, that belongs to the public, and you go ahead and you set up a sukkah. So you're stealing from the public. They have this property belongs to them, and now you're taking it for your private use. You're making a sukkah out of it. So those are two cases that the Gemara says of thievery. Again, case number one, the Gemara is going to explain what the case of sukkah gezula is. You go into somebody else's sukkah, you take him out, the Gemara is going to send, you bring him outside, and you go in and you sit in the sukkah. That's case number one, the Gemara is going to explain. The case number two is that you set up your sukkah, you took your materials, you took your boards, your schach, your everything, and you opened and you set up a sukkah in public property. So what does it say about these two cases? Sukkah gezula v'asachim shram v'leze posel v'chachomim ashirin. The Chachomim said that technically that sukkah, if a person went ahead and sat in that sukkah, the Chacham say you fulfilled your responsibility of your mitzvah sukkah, and that's going to be the big chidush of the Chachamim, that you can fulfill your obligation in such a sukkah. So now the Gemara is going to try to qualify and explain what is the case of this dispute. So the Gemara says, Omer Rav Nachman. So Nachman says, Machloket b'tokef chavero v'otzia misukoto. You went ahead, you took your friend, and you pulled him out of the sukkah, so to speak, out of his sukkah that was built on his property, and you go ahead and you go into that sukkah, and now you took over his sukkah. So you did a big sin, right? A great sin was created, right? Right? Took over someone else's sukkah. So Rabbi Eliezer says it's pasul. Rabbi Eliezer says that it is invalid. And the Gemara says, what's his reason? Rabbi Eliezer l'tamei. The Amma ein adam yotzei dechavoto besukoto shechavero. A person cannot fulfill his obligation with someone else's sukkah. And Rabbi Eliezer was the minority opinion that says that on Sukkot, you have to own the sukkah. You can't use someone else's sukkah. You can't borrow a sukkah if someone else is on Sukkot. Now, we don't hold that way. I could eat in your sukkah, Ralph. You could eat in my sukkah. But Eliezer says that borrow, just like we have the halacha, we know we have halacha by lulav, etrog, hadasim, Rabbas, the first day, you cannot borrow a lulav. He holds that this halacha, but when it comes to the sukkah, it also says lacha. He understands it has to belong to you. You have to own the sukkah. You do not fulfill your obligation, just like you have to write a Sefer Torah. If you borrow a Sefer Torah, you don't fulfill your obligation of writing a Sefer Torah. The obligation of the Torah is you have to own the Sefer Torah. It has to belong to you, right? So too, the sukkah has to belong to you. Again, we do not hold that way. And he holds, Ein adam yotzei dechavatov b'sukkah shel chavero. So now, being that's his opinion, you cannot fill your obligation with someone else's sukkah. So now there's a whole question. Remember we said a movable item, the thief has the ability to say that it's considered that it left the domain of the original owner, and now that it's in the domain of the thief, right? Let's say that the thief goes ahead and he takes someone's cell phone. It no longer is it by the original owner. Now the thief has he has now stolen a cell phone. and he has certain responsibility, and and he has to return the cell phone. But a cell phone could be stolen. So, but we had a discussion: could land be stolen? A guy takes over someone's land. Is it considered that the land is stolen? Is it now by the thief, or the land can't, or the land can't? It's not something you could actually. It's not tangible. You could say I stole it. I'm just taking possession of something, but I didn't really, I didn't really take it. It's occupying it, but I never really, I can't take it because I can't put it in my pocket, right? So we said, so if land could be stolen, if this land that could be stolen, so if you went ahead and you created a sukkah in someone else's property, you took over someone else's sukkah, so then sukkah gazulahi, then it is a stolen, it's a stolen sukkah. And if you want to, meaning, let's say you put up the walls on someone else's property. So if we say that it's considered stolen, so therefore you are not, it's a stolen sukkah. Vinam, and therefore you will not fulfill your obligation because it's stolen. Vinami, the Gemara says, Moriyadim. Vinami karka ain't an exelet, or you say land can't be stolen. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Okay, we are on, just to bring everyone up to date, we're on 31A1. The Gemara now brings a very interesting case, and it's we're going to see, it's going to be the opinion of the Chachamim are going to be a difficult opinion to understand. But the Gemara is now explaining Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, if someone goes ahead and goes into someone else's property, or goes into public property, and he goes ahead and he puts up a sukkah in the public property, and he had no right to, because the property belongs to the public. So you're stealing from the public, that area. Or you go ahead and you take someone out of his sukkah and you occupy his sukkah on the holiday of Sukkot. So the question is, we have a discussion in the Gemara, can land, if you take over somebody's land, is it considered that, do we look at it that it's stolen property, that it's considered, like any time you take someone else's item, there's a transfer, a change from the domain of the owner to the domain of the thief, or is land something that you really can't really steal? Is land the type of item that, meaning, and what's the difference? You took over someone's property. So we said there is a question that if you go ahead and if I take an item that belongs to somebody else, good morning, Simon. If I take an item that belongs to somebody else, I take someone's cell phone and the owner gives up hope. So we said there is an opinion that says the fact that there was giving up of hope and it left the domain of the owner, there's an opinion that says that at that time, the thief now acquires that phone, and the thief has a financial obligation to pay back the money for it. Because there was already hope was given up. The owner gave up hope from ever getting back the phone, and the thief now has the phone in his possession. We said the other opinion is it's not enough for the thief to have it in his possession. He has to actually go give it to somebody else or sell it to someone else in order for the financial obligation to begin, that it's now acquired by the next party. But the question is land, right? So we said if a guy goes into someone else's land, the owner gives up hope. We're saying since land is not a movable item, it's not something you can put into your pocket. So the other guy can give up hope from today to tomorrow. The owner give up hope. It's still in the possession of the owner. The land remains in the possession of the owner. And being that the land remains in the possession of the owner, the land has to go back. The thief can't, there's no such thing as just giving back the just giving back the money, the value, because it's still the item that he stole is still by the item that he stole is still in the possession of the original owner. Good morning, Jaime.
Morning.
Good to see you. We are
Thank
on
you.
31A on the right side. And therefore the Gemara says, if land is not stolen, there's a concept that the Gemara says that I could steal a movable item. It's considered that it leaves the domain. There's a possibility that the item leaves the domain of the original owner, and it enters into my domain, the domain of the person who steals it. But by land, if you take over someone's land, real estate land, you can't really take the other person's land. You can't hold, it's not that you could take and put in your pocket. So you're just possessing someone's land, but you're not, but it's not considered that you now could own, could actually take ownership of someone else's land, that you will have only a financial obligation to pay back through your thievery. If you take someone's land, since land is not movable, it remains, the idea is, right, Adam, that it remains, we've got a lawyer in the house here, that it remains in the possession of the original owner. And therefore,
What if the owner gives up hope?
Even if the owner gives up hope, that's the difference between land and a movable item. If a thief steals a movable item, and then let's say he sells it to someone else, he gives it to someone else, at that point, if the owner gave up hope from the item, the obligation is to give a financial obligation on the thief to give back the value of the item, and the item becomes the property of the one who bought it, let's say, from the thief. But if it's land, even if the thief sold it to another party and the original owner gave up hope, because it's land, it never left. The giving up hope doesn't make a difference. It never left the domain. You're giving up hope from something that's in your pocket. You gave up hope from something that can't be stolen, but the guy it's not something you could take hold of, that you could own someone else's by taking. You didn't take it out of the guy's domain by possessing it.
If you look at it like a government or something like that, like Russia took over Crimea, they took over the whole thing, and no one challenged it, and it's now Russian territory. So now, let's say a guy comes from there, instead of it being a government, it's an individual. He comes with a gun, says, "Get out of here or I'll kill you, and I'm taking over this land." The guy says, "Okay, I'm going to die, take the land." And it's surely forced upon him. It's not sold, it's not given, it's not gifted. But the guy took over the land, and on it's a Succah, and now he has a stolen Succah, a stolen land.
Right. So again, so the first question is, again, your case is one country took over someone else's property, and then subsequently someone else went in?
I just use that as to get our brain over to the concept of someone could take over someone's land. You can take over someone's land forcibly, and then the guy could give up hope for the land because he wants to stay alive. The same thing, that's way a country could do it. One person could do it to another person.
But we're saying, even if a guy gave up hope, let's give an example. In Europe, the Nazis took over land of Jewish people, and the owners gave up hope, let's say, of ever giving it back. But now the question is, do the people who took the land, who now have the land right now in Germany and Poland, do they have, what's their obligation to give back? Money, compensation for the land? Or is it that the land itself has to go back to the original owner? That will be the question.
Right.
So
whether it was sold four times or not, it was sold 4 times,
right? Even if it's sold 4 times, The fact is, if land can't be stolen, in that context, it could be repossessed. You could throw someone if someone has the ability to use his power to throw someone out. But if land doesn't have the ability to leave the by thievery because it's land, you don't have the ability to enter that now it belongs to the thief. It doesn't.
I think they actually did give back land.
I think recently, right? I think in the news there was something recently they gave back the original land, even though it might have been sold 100 times. But since it's land, it doesn't. It's not something. It remains in the possession of the original owner, even though someone stole it, even though he gave it up. So that is what the Gemara, because it always remains in the domain. It's like a person says, "I give up hope of something that's in my pocket. It's in my pocket. It still remains. I have it. It's still by me. So my land, even though the guy went ahead and he repossessed the land. Good to see you. Yeah, I don't see him. I don't see him yet. He might come later. Then we'll make some movements. Morning, Daniel. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. I mean, Daniel remembers everything. Yeah. Okay. We should share many more. Thank you with everyone together. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone should continue growing and fulfill your everyone's great potential. So the Gemara says, "V'inami kakein migzelet." If we say land, we are 31a on the right side. 31a1. So the Gemara says, ain't it exelet? If land cannot really be considered stolen out of the domain of the original owner, so then sukkah shulahi. If someone takes over someone else's sukkah, someone threw someone out of someone's sukkah, or someone went ahead and built a sukkah on public property. And now people have to know if you know when sometimes stores go ahead and build a sukkah in the street. And if they don't get the permission from the townspeople, they're getting into this big question of a stolen sukkah. So the Rabbi Eliezer says that it's no good, such a sukkah, because he says he holds that a sukkah, you cannot fulfill your obligation with a sukkah that is borrowed. Meaning, the same way I can't borrow a lulav on the first day of the holiday, I can't borrow someone's sukkah. I can't be a guest in someone else's sukkah. The sukkah has to belong to me. Very personal mitzvah, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Of course, we don't hold that way, right? But and he says that even if you say that the land remains where it from the original owner, and therefore when you go ahead and you take over someone else's property and you build a sukkah on that property, it's still considered in the property still remains by the owner. It was never considered stolen in a real sense. The property wasn't stolen. You know, a lulav, you could steal a lulav. Not you could, you're not allowed to. But it's possible that you could say that the lulav left the domain of the owner, and now it's by me. But I could go ahead and I could take over someone's property from today to tomorrow. It's still his property. Therefore, I am really borrowing his property, borrowing, so to speak, in a very bad way. I am really borrowing. Morning, Aaron. I'm borrowing someone else's property, and since I'm borrowing, so Beleza says it is no good, because he says you cannot fulfill your mitzvah of sukkah on a borrowed sukkah. So that's a borrowed sukkah. What? So that's also, if you build a sukkah on someone's property, according to Rabbi Eliezer, if you did it without permission, so that's stealing. And since the ground is, you're using the grounds also, you're staying there, you're sitting. If they've let, that means that would sound like that means that's the permission. If the town, that's an understanding, right? So now, so that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbanon, this is going to be the big chidush, everybody, which is going to be very hard to explain. The Rabbanon hold that you could technically fulfill your mitzvah on this sukkah. That you actually went ahead, you went into someone else's property, you went into public property and you set up a sukkah. Or you actually took someone, which is you actually took someone out of his sukkah, and you sat in his sukkah. Morning, Mr. Haber. You went ahead and you went into someone else's sukkah. You took him out. You physically took the man out, and you went into his sukkah, and you sat. Rabbi Eliezer, Chachamim hold, you technically get credit. You got credit for that mitzvah. Of course, you were not allowed to do that, and of course, we will tell you don't do that. But now, let's say it's after the fact. Let's say it's the first night of the holiday. Well, you must eat in the sukkah the first night. Yeah, and if certain times of the holiday, we said if you don't want to eat bread, you don't eat bread, right? You don't want to eat bread on Chalamoid, you don't eat bread. You don't have to be in the sukkah. But the first night of the holiday, you must go ahead and find yourself a sukkah and eat bread in the sukkah. And if a guy went ahead and he ate in this sukkah, that he actually took the guy owner out and he put him in the street and he sat in the sukkah, or he set up a sukkah in public property, the Chachamim hold he got credit for the mitzvah. That's going to be the great chidush of the Chachamim. Now, why do the Chachamim say he gets credit? Because the Chachamim look at this situation that it's considered you're using someone else's sukkah in a certain sense, like it's like you borrowed someone's item. And therefore, since it's called, because you can't really steal his land, you might have thrown the guy out of the property, but it's still his, it's still in his possession. So you're sitting in someone else's property. So you're sitting in someone else's property, if yes, not lawfully. That's called you're borrowing someone else's item, and you're borrowing someone else's item. You're allowed to borrow. Not allowed, you can fulfill a mitzvah of sukkah on a borrowed sukkah. So we're saying the Chacham hold you can't. The Chacham are very clear. No. So the Chacham hold the land. I can't. The land doesn't belong to the thief. So therefore, whose land remains? The original owner. So I am now eating in the sukkah of the original owner. So therefore, I fulfill my obligation. Why? Because I'm eating in someone else's sukkah. No, that's Rabbi Eliezer. Now we're going to Chachamim. The Chacham hold it does not have to be your sukkah. I can eat in Mr. Ajmi's sukkah and Mark's sukkah and sukkah. A sukkah doesn't have to belong to the person who's doing what? And that's how we hold. And so the Chachamim hold you don't have to be yours. You don't have to own it. Exactly. So therefore, now if I'm going ahead and therefore the chiddush is extended. After, like Mr. Haber said, I have to eat in a sukkah. It doesn't have to be mine. Even if I took the guy out of his sukkah and I put him into the street and I sat in his sukkah, it's not my sukkah. Whose sukkah is it? His sukkah. And I don't really possess it because it's land. I can't really possess land. I can possess this. A thief could take something. If he takes something that belongs to someone else, now he possesses. This is considered an item that now he stole this item. But land is different than Rebbe Chum. So you can't steal it. You could just temporarily take the guy out. So therefore, the Chachamim say you fulfill your obligation. You got credit for the mitzvah. Now the commentators discuss, but at the end of the day, isn't it a mitzvah haba b'aveira? That's what they're all gonna. That's what everybody's trying to understand. How could let's say granted, land can't be stolen. I can't. It still remains it's by yours. Today to tomorrow, I want to steal. I can't steal this. I can't steal this ground. The ground. How can I steal it? I can't put it in my pocket. I can't do it. But I'm still doing a sin, right, Daniel? I'm doing a sin. I took a guy, Aaron. I threw him out of his sukkah. I sat in his sukkah. So the mitzvah came as a result of a sin. So now that gets into that question. What's with a mitzvah coming as a result of a sin? We did have two different opinions in the Gemara. That would that invalidate my mitzvah or not? So is this Gemara going with the idea that it will not invalidate my mitzvah? Meaning to say, listen, for whatever you do, whatever the sin, you did a sin, you stole whatever, you didn't take possession, whether you're now in the property, you had no right to be there. But we're not going to say, and then you went ahead and you did a sin. Maybe you shouldn't have done that. You should not be using someone else's property. But after the fact, you went ahead, you did a mitzvah, we're going to say you got credit. Or some will say, no, if you do, you're not going to get credit for such a mitzvah. How can you get credit here? So some want to make a distinction in what type of mitzvah you're doing. If you're doing something that the mitzvah is coming, let's say an offering, you're trying to bring an offering to Hashem, like we had the Gemara brings a pasuk. Is Hashem going to accept an offering that's stolen? I mean, so when you're doing something to serve as a kapara, as an atonement, some say that type of mitzvah that's coming to serve as an atonement of some sort of as an appeasement to God, and you stole it, it's not going to serve as an atonement or appeasement if it was stolen. But a different type of mitzvah, some want to say, like Sukkah, sitting in a Sukkah, which is remembering the miracle of the clouds. Right, you can't do it. But the question is, after the fact, you get, so others don't. Right, but the question is, let's give Mark's example. A guy went ahead and he turned on the light to make kiddush. He did a sin. He has no right to turn on the light to make kiddush. Big sin, big time. But now a guy turned on the light and he went ahead and he made kiddush. Oh, we're going to say now the kiddush is invalid, or we're going to say he did a sin, he turned on the light, but now he went ahead and did a mitzvah. That mitzvah is not going to be negated and not accepted because he turned on the light. That will be the question. That's true. There's no concept. No one says you're allowed to do it. The question is, after the fact, are we going to say did the guy get credit for that kiddush? Did he get credit, or we say he didn't get credit for that kiddush? Morning, good to see you, Dave. Did he get credit for the kiddush, or didn't get credit for the kiddush? So there's in order for something to be, so that's going to be the question. Others say, listen, if a guy steals matzah, it says if you stole matzah and you ate matzah, you don't get credit for eating the matzah. You stole the matzah. There's nothing. It's not about appeasing God. It's not a mitzvah of being a korban. So that's how they challenge that answer. So this is something that's basically it seems that the rules of a mitzvah that comes as a result of a sin, might have certain criteria to meet in order for that mitzvah not to get credit. So someone will explain, if I actually would have taken something out of if I took an item from somebody and I did a mitzvah with that item, I stole matzah and I did a mitzvah, meaning I actually took it out from the possession of the original owner, and then I went ahead and I ate the matzah. So that I will not get credit. But this time, what? So I'm saying, so some want to make it right. So therefore, they want to prove that we see from matzah that it's not something just only limited to a korban or that type of thing. Any across the board. So the mitzvah that's done through a sin, you don't get credit. So then they're back to the drawing board. So how is it that the Chachamim say, in this case, David, he went into someone else's property and he set up a sukkah. And he set up a sukkah on someone else's property. How do Chachamim say that you get credit after the fact? You did it. You sat in the sukkah. You shouldn't have sat there. You shouldn't be using someone else's property. You did a sin by going to someone else's property unlawfully. But now that you did it, the Chachamim say you don't have to do over the mitzvah. You got credit. So some make a distinction between the matzah, where I actually took it out. I took his item. I took possession. It left the guy. It left the owner. I took something from the owner. But when I can't take it, something that I can't take, so somebody, what?
You could still use it. The matzah is gone.
Right. So some make a distinction and to try to explain maybe that creates the difference between the matzah case and this case. But this is the big chidush. This is the big novelty of the Chachamim. That sukkah is unique. Property is different. If you go into someone else's property and you went ahead and you built the sukkah and you ate there, even though everything was done wrong, but you technically get credit for it. That is the Chachamim. So according to this Gemara, the fact that this guy, the guy who stole it, is not less than renting it, right? You had to pay. You have no right to stealing it. It would be the same thing as obligation to rent, to pay. You didn't pay. So according to this opinion, he technically got credit. That's stealing. If you didn't you took a property, you didn't pay for it. You didn't supposed to pay your rental fee. So that's stealing. But and it's technically, that's what the Chacham say on this, and it's unique so far. It's unique for land, because land is considered something you didn't really actually take from him. It's still by him. It's still his. You're using his item. It's still, you didn't take it. It's not like matzah. I took it. That's an extra reason. So we're gonna get into this point now also. So the Gemara says, Rabbana l'tamayu, the Omri, Adam yotzei yedei chavoto v'sukoto shechavero. They say a person can fulfill his obligation by, if I want to be a guest in someone else's house, using someone else's sukkah, I can fulfill my obligation. And karka ain't an exelet. Land is never technically stolen. I can't steal your land. I could try. Person could try to steal this piece of land. You can't. You can't steal. I can't steal this land. So the Gemara says, and aval gozal eitzim. So listen to this case. But if a guy went ahead, thank you for joining. If a guy went ahead and he stole wood, v'sikech behem. So here is the case is, he went on his own property, he went ahead and he stole someone's wood, and then he made a sukkah from someone else's wood. So now it's a different case. It's in his own property, he stole someone's wood, and now if he made a change in the wood itself, right? If he went ahead and he changed the wood, he cut it into certain size, then he did certain things in the wood, where it can't go back to its original state. So that change makes it that the thief has now a financial obligation to pay back. Because the Torah says you have to return what you stole, right? But if it's no longer in the conditions, you change it. It's no longer in that condition that you stole it. And it can't go back to that condition. Then what kicks in then? A financial obligation you have to return that money, the value of the item. So if Gozal Eitzim v'sicha, and then there's another idea that Rashi points out, that the rabbis wanted to make it easy for a person to repent. So if a person did a great sin that he stole, imagine a guy steals and he puts up beams, and he made a roof from materials, puts up beams in a building from stolen materials, right, Gary? Right? He went ahead, and what happens? Now you recognize the beams. It says beams, it says the name of the original owner on the beams. So now what are you going to do? You're going to say, give me back my beams. I want my beams back. Beams are hard to come by. Took me a lot of time to make these beams. I waited 6 months to get these custom-made beams. Now, give me my beams back. And the beams, you can recognize the beams. What do we say? Do you have to give back the beams? We say no, money. Why? Because we wanted to make it easy for the thief to turn himself in. Because if you're going to tell him that he has to give back the actual beams that he used, he's going to say, I'm going to take apart my building. Okay, so what Mark, so the comment that now, the fact that he's going to give the money, if he doesn't plan on giving the money back for the beams, but if he plans, the guy stole the beams, he plans on giving back the money for it. What? Okay, so if he gives the money later on, then retroactively you would see that then it'll be good, right? If he It's right, but the question would be, Mark, if originally he had in mind when he used the sukkah, no intention to pay back, then maybe he will not, then maybe that would be different. That maybe he would not get credit, for that mitzvah while he did. Right. But we said there's all different cases that we said with land and different things. But here it's not land that he stole, it's not land, it's movable item. So here the Gemara says if you stole wood, you stole materials, and you put up a sukkah with stolen materials, so you're out. Then even Rabbi Eliezer, who would agree, that becomes yours. That materials, because you changed the material item, and therefore you acquired the material. The thief acquires the material through the change, and therefore he has a financial. What he stole, but now even though he stole, but what his obligation now is a financial obligation. What do you say? Paying back, and now so this becomes his. The item becomes his, and now this is his sukkah. Being that this is sukkah, he can fulfill his obligation of sukkah. Even if you hold, you can't use a borrowed sukkah, but this is not a borrowed sukkah. The materials now belong to him. Or because the Chachamim, the rabbi said, we got to make it easy for a guy to turn himself in, that he's going to want to repent, and therefore his obligation is only a financial obligation. What you can't.
Your word, you can't put your God in that. You have no ability to have it. I stole you. Can't get in the car. He said he was and the other guy's taking it up. I made it far from Avira. And that's one thing. And two is
no, again, if he's not paying back, then again, so then it might be considered stolen. So if he has no intention to pay back, so then many will say that then you don't get credit for the mitzvah, then it's considered stolen goods. But if you steal something, if I steal a piece of wood that belongs to you, and after I steal it, so we're saying once the item, this opinion is saying once the item belongs to me, I stole your wood, I made artwork from your wood, I made beautiful artwork, I changed the whole thing around, and I built a sukkah with that beautiful artwork, and I'm paying you back, and I paid you back for the wood that I stole. Are we going to say that now the sukkah is not mine? It's considered because the materials, I had originally stole the materials, or do we say that once I changed the materials, and now those materials, I have financial obligation to pay the one I stole it from, but now the materials belong to me, the thief. The thief who stole a piece of wood and he made a beautiful artwork. He spent 6 months and he changed the whole piece of wood around. What is his obligation to pay the guy? He has to give him the artwork back. Well, the artwork is his. It now belongs to the thief, right? Right, David? Steve, what do you say?
Meaning that from the wood, the man that he stole it from, waited 6 months to get that wood. Now he can't replace the wood. He just gave him the money. So how does he overbuild his succah? He can't. So although he is going to give him back the money, give you back the money, the guy's out of luck. So
right, it's true. It's not. Of course, the guy who stole it did a terrible thing. It's not. He had no right to do it. It's not fair. But the question is there now? Does he acquire ownership of that wood once he did? But until he pays for the wood, and he plans on paying for the wood, but he built this magnificent sukkah out of this wood. He changed the wood. There is such a concept. Yes. Right. If you never intend to pay that, that's a different story. Right. Because that, right. Yeah, that we could say, yes. If you stole the wood and you never intended to pay for the wood, that's considered, then, and then you did, that would be considered, you should not get credit. But at the time that he used it, didn't have intention to pay. Most probably he won't get the mitzvah. Okay.
Stole cash from somebody, and they took the cash, they bought the wood from stolen money, and they go to Succah. What do we call that? And how is he gonna pay him back?
I would say if he stole the cash, he owes him cash. The fact that you bought wood with that cash, you built your sukkah, you made a sukkah, okay, so he caused a terrible thing. But the question is, does he get credit for his sukkah that he built?
Yeah. Because he has the intention to pay.
Okay, it's a very complex Gemara here that we did today. One of very hard Gemaras. I want to wish everyone a beautiful crowd we had here today. We have to tell the people about the 10th commandment, right? Not to steal. Yes. We want to wish everyone a great day and look to have everyone back in the future. See that? Beautiful crowd. Yes, thank you so much.